Parent, welcome back to BNN Bloomberg. Thanks very much for joining us.
Morning.
So I do want to talk about that pledge to become carbon neutral and reaching that milestone. But as I mentioned, this is such a challenging time for any business. We hear all the headlines on the aerospace industry. What's it been like for you in navigating through the pandemic?
Well, it's not been easy for anybody, right? We've adapted, all of us, to a new reality, both in business and at home. And it's been very challenging, obviously. We're exposed to airlines, obviously, as a main market. So we've adapted. If you think about our business, we train pilots. So to a certain extent, the impact for us is minimized because as long as the airplanes fly, the pilots have to get trained. And at the moment, planes are flying, except, of course, obviously at a much lower level. But I take a lot of solace that we've been able to continue our operations. We've been able to keep our customers and our employees and their families safe. We've had no community transmission because of the protocols we've had. So, all things being equal, although we have a lot of short-term pain, I've never been more excited about the prospects for our company.
That's very interesting to hear you say that and share that optimism. So just to be clear, pilot training, that continues. We might not see a lot of planes in the skies right now, but that part of that business remains active for you.
Yeah, it has to. And that's part of the reason why air travel is the safest mode of transportation by far in the world. Because we at CAE play a big role in that as being the leader in training using simulators around the world. One fact that I always share is that of all the pilots of flying airplanes in the air today, commercial airliners, the majority have been trained on equipment, built and designed right here in Montreal in Canada. So I feel good about that. And the fact is, pilots have to go back into a simulator every 6 months to be able to prove, again, that they have the skills to be able to handle any emergency that could arise on an aircraft. Of course, they probably will never see that, but they have to be ready. That's what we do.
Okay, so pilots have to evolve, they have to be ready. We talked about this pledge to become carbon neutral and achieving that, which I think is worth talking about because, when we think about the green economy and being carbon neutral, you think about electric cars, Tesla, all that kind of stuff. But the footprint of airlines and the aerospace industry, this is significant. How'd you go about making this happen?
Well, for us, starting with what we do, obviously we train people using simulators. So by the very nature of what we do as an activity, we actually offset through the training of pilots. We offset flying on real aircraft. So just our very activity reduces that. But that's part and parcel of what we do. But what we specifically set out to do here is to minimize all of the emissions that we at CAE emit by our activities ourselves. So think about, we actually have aircraft. We have over 200 aircraft at CAE that we train pilots to become airline pilots, right from scratch. So we're minimizing or offsetting the carbon emissions arising from those activities by, first of all, minimizing, or eliminating, of course, which is obviously the best we can do. But more specifically, we're offsetting those carbon emissions through, buying renewable energy certificates or carbon offsets, in which we invest in projects that either minimize or eliminate carbon emissions that we can't reduce ourselves at source.
Interesting context there, and I think it's also worth noting, in this conversation alone, we've talked about some of the efforts on your carbon footprint, but the other part of your business, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, manufacturing of ventilators, something we've seen a lot of companies retooling around those efforts. What sense are you getting on how we're gearing up in this country, dealing with, however you want to describe it, a second wave, what hospitals are preparing for, just being in the mix on that front? What kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, for us, as you pointed out, thanks for pointing out, when we were at the beginning of the crisis back in March and April, and we could see what was happening in Europe and Italy specifically, and, the dire situations where, people were really facing life and death decisions based on the fact that they didn't have ventilators specifically, or other types of equipment. So we launched into what is a humanitarian effort, and we retooled our complete factory to build a ventilator that's used in ICUs, which we actually designed from scratch here, using our skills, our engineering skills, and our healthcare skills right here in Montreal. And we've gone to contract to build 10,000 for the government of Canada. We're off to the races on building those. We have over 500 people that used to build simulators that have completely retooled to build these ventilators. And we're going to be there to make sure that Public Health of Canada and all the hospitals across the country that they serve will have the ventilators that they need, if and when they need them.
Mr. Parent, when you say retooling, it reminds me that even if we weren't talking about COVID-19 and how it's impacted the airline industry, obviously there had been so much talk around Boeing and the 737 MAX. And since pilot training and safety is such an important part of that, and getting to the finish line and regulator approvals, can you just update us? Any recent conversations that you've had with Boeing, any feedback that you're getting from them?
Well, in actual fact, because of the fact that we've sold over 90% of the 737 MAX simulators that are out there, we're a partner with Boeing in helping them get the fleet back in the air by making sure that there's a proper suite of training equipment around the world. We're working with our customers that have bought those aircraft. So we're very, tight. Literally, I have a monthly call with Boeing, and they're progressing very well, I think, in terms of getting the fleet back in the air. But I think probably by the end of this year, or certainly. So I'm quite optimistic about that and about the MAX and its return to service.
Okay, so some optimism when it comes to the MAX, and you talked about optimism with your own business. Everybody's trying to figure out, with airlines generally, when we get back to some kind of normal. It's not an easy answer for anyone, even those who understand the business, but what's your best guess at this point?
Well, I tend to want to face reality and use, what the IATA is saying, specifically IATA's group, that the International Air Traffic Association, that basically had the bulk of the world's airlines are part of that group. And the consensus is that, really things don't recover for planning purposes to the levels of 2019 in terms of passenger travel, probably, going into 2024. Now, it will restart. It has restarted. Narrow body aircraft has restarted, faster. We expect that to recover faster as well. Because I think transatlantic, transpacific will be slower. For us, it's not there's a mitigating impact because of all the training centers we have around the world, and we have over 300 simulators. The 75% of those are for narrow body aircraft. So for us, there's a mitigating circumstances that, it's okay for our business.
So listening to everything you're saying, which is really helpful context, I do wonder, it feels like the elephant in the room ultimately is the idea of bailouts. We've been talking about that theme developing in the United States today, and obviously we'll see what happens with the U.S. carriers. What do you think, especially for the Canadian airline industry? How do you view a subject like bailouts?
Well, I can't really comment on it. I think you have to leave that to the airlines themselves. I think that the airlines have been doing fantastic work to basically manage their operations themselves. I think they're adapting to the situation as best they can right here in Canada and across the world. So, yeah, I think I'll leave that question to them. We'll handle our business.